Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, text number 18. I will read the Sanskrit word-for-word translation and purport. Kunti uvacha namastye purusham dvadyam ishvaram prakrite param alakshyam sarvabhutanam antarbahir avashtitam. Word for word. Kunti uvacha, Srimati Kunti said, Namasye, let me bow down. Purusham, the Supreme Person. Tva, you. Adyam, the original. Ishvaram, the controller. Prakrite, of the material cosmos. Param, beyond. Alakshyam, the invisible. Sarva, all. Bhutanam, of living beings. Antaha, within. Bahi, without. Avastitam, existing. Translation. Srimati Kunti said, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. Purport. Srimati Kunti Devi was quite aware that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, although he was playing the part of her nephew. Such an enlightened lady could not commit a mistake by offering obeisances unto her nephew. Therefore, she addressed him as the original Purusha, beyond the material cosmos. Although all living entities are also transcendental, they are neither original nor infallible. The living entities are apt to fall down under the clutches of material nature, but the Lord is never like that. In the Vedas, therefore, he is described as the chief among all living entities, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanash Chaitananam. Then again, he is addressed as Ishvara, or the controller. The living entities are the living entities or the demigods, like Chandra and Surya, are also to some extent Ishvara, but none of them is the supreme Ishvara, or the ultimate controller. He is the Parameshvara, or the supersoul. He is both within and without. Although he was present before Srimati Kunti as her nephew, he was also within her and everyone else. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text 15, the Lord says, I am situated in everyone's heart. Only due to me, one remembers, forgets, and is cognizant, etc. Through all the Vedas, I am to be known because I am the compiler of the Vedas, and I am the teacher of the Vedanta. Queen Kunti affirms that the Lord, although both within and without all living beings, is still invisible. The Lord is, so to speak, a puzzle for the common man. Queen Kunti experienced personally that Lord Krishna was present before her, yet he entered within the womb of Uttara to save her embryo from the attack of Ashwatthama's Brahmastra. Kunti herself was puzzled about whether Sri Krishna is all-pervasive or localized. In fact, he is both, but he reserves the right of not being exposed to persons who are not surrendered souls. This checking curtain is called the Maya energy of the Supreme Lord, and it controls the limited vision of the rebellious soul. It is explained as follows. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So just to quickly recap the context, Ashwatthama has sent another Brahmastra, and this was just as Krishna was leaving, and the rites and rituals had already been done for the departed souls that were killed in the battle of Kurukshetra, and also the sons of the Pandavas. And as Krishna was leaving Uttara, comes running, and she's asking for Krishna's protection because another Brahmastra is coming. And she specifically asks, it's okay if I get killed, but please at least protect my child. And so now in the previous verse, in the previous section right before this, we heard that Krishna was able to protect, and this was obviously Parikshit that was in the womb. He was able to protect the child. And now, right after doing that, Queen Kunti is beginning to offer her prayers of glorification to the Lord. And of course, this prayers by Queen Kunti are one of the most famous prayers in our tradition, one of the most famous sets of prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very beautiful and very all-encompassing as far as our philosophy is concerned as well. Prabhupada's purport is beautiful. He very nicely explains the verse and the different terms by which Queen Kunti is referring to Krishna. So we'll just go through these different sections of the verse and visit how Prabhupada is elaborating on these different terms that Queen Kunti is mentioning. So firstly, she addresses Krishna as Purusham Tvadyam. So in the word for word, we see that this means that Krishna is the supreme person and he is the original person. And Prabhupada starts his purport by pointing out that Queen Kunti, obviously she has a familial relation to Krishna, with Krishna being her nephew. But at the same time, Kunti is certainly aware that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And not only is he the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Purusham, but he is Adyam, he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this differentiation is also mentioned in the first canto of the Bhagavatam earlier on, when we are hearing about the different incarnations, the different incarnations of the Lord, and particularly this, Krishna is described as the original incarnation of the Lord, from which all other incarnations expand. And this avatar tattva is personally very confusing for me, but basically, the most important thing that we should understand is Krishna is the original source from which all other incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead come from. And I mean, this in itself is already an interesting point, because Queen Kunti is related to Krishna through family relation. And we understand that Queen Kunti, not only Queen Kunti, but all of the Pandavas and all of the different members of the Yadu dynasty, primarily it seems that they see Krishna as either a familiar relation or a friend, or Arjuna sees Krishna as a friend, and in the Bhagavad Gita he also sees him as his master. But we don't necessarily see these family relations or these friendly relations also seeing Krishna as the Supreme Lord. And it seems from this context that Queen Kunti is almost being reminded of Krishna's, that the fact that he's not just a familial relation, but that he's actually God, considering this circumstance, obviously, that they've been put into. They just witnessed Krishna basically performing a miracle and protecting this child from the Brahmastra that was coming. So this is highlighting his God feature. And so on to the next part of the verse. Krishna is addressed as Prakrite Param. And so this means he's beyond the material cosmos. And Prabhupada explains how the living entities, you and I, all of us, we are also Prakriti Param. We are also beyond the material nature as super soul, as souls, as Atma. But unlike the Lord, we are susceptible to coming under the clutches of material nature. And this is also a stark difference that is highlighted many times in the Bhagavatam. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it would have been nice to pull up some more verses, but there are definitely verses that explain how Krishna is both he is both within the material energy, but he is also beyond the material energy. So he's, as him being present everywhere. And so Prakriti Param is another term that glorifies Krishna as being beyond the material nature. And this is a differentiation between his nature and our jiva nature, as us being susceptible to coming under the influence of the material nature. And also Krishna is addressed as Ishvara, the controller. And again, Prabhupada is highlighting how some living entities and even some, of course, definitely some demigods are considered as Ishvara also. They are also controllers. Of course, we have in the material world, we have the different leaders of different political groups, different nations. And amongst the demigods, we have Indra, we have various demigods that are the quote unquote controllers of their particular domain. But Krishna is Param Ishvara. He is the supreme controller. And so, he's clearly being addressed as such by Queen Kunti to suggest that he is beyond all other quote unquote controllers. And then we see Krishna is addressed as Alakshyam, which is invisible, and Antar Bahir Avashtitam, which is existing. He's existing within and outside of all living entities. So Krishna, and then Prabhupada has this nice statement. He says Krishna is a puzzle for the common man. And this statement can definitely be unpacked. But he further goes on to explain that Kunti saw Krishna standing before her, and simultaneously he was able to protect Parikshit within the womb without anyone else's awareness. So it's not that they saw Krishna perform some physical action to stop the Brahmastra. In fact, he was just standing there and he simultaneously manifested himself in a very tiny form, entering the womb of Uttara to protect this child within her womb without anyone else's awareness. And so this was a very confusing circumstance to witness, because they're seeing Krishna standing right before them, and somehow this Brahmastra has been stopped by some force that they have not seen. So Kunti's explaining that you are Alakshyam, invisible, and you are existing both within and without all living entities. So this is again, Krishna has clearly exhibited this feature that is unique to himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Kunti is seeing that this feature is very grand, and it can only be attributed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so then Prabhupada finally ends the purport by explaining how in the next verse, it will be explained further how this potency that covers the Lord from the living entities, this Maya potency, how it does its work by masking the Lord from the living entities. And just on this point of Krishna being addressed as Alakshyam, invisible. So this is very important, because Prabhupada, let me just see this wording that he used in the purport. He said, in fact, he, being Krishna, is both meaning both localized and all-pervasive, but he reserves the right of not being exposed to persons who are not surrendered souls. So this is kind of the point for us as aspiring devotees. that sometimes it's explained, or it's kind of argued, why doesn't Krishna, if first of all, if Krishna exists, why doesn't he simply reveal himself to us? But he has these potencies all set up for a specific reason. And as we understand, at its most basic level, if you love a person, then if you want to love a person, it's not that that person should force you to love them, but rather it should be coming from your own self, very unopposed, and which means that Krishna could choose to make us love him if he wanted to, and he could choose to reveal himself to us. But first of all, if he chose to reveal himself to us, would we recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? I would argue that if you're not a devotee of the Lord, then you wouldn't. And we have examples of that. Even the Kauravas are an example of people who saw the Lord face to face and failed to recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to their demise. And so similarly, even if Krishna were to show himself to us, then we would not recognize him as the Supreme Lord unless we're purified. And just to add to that, if we are not willing to work to overcome his Maya potency, and if we are not willing to work to establish our love for him and to grow that love for him, then why should we be considered worthy of this Maya potency being uncovered from our eyes? And so this is just one point that I was just thinking of. So our Krishna consciousness practice is something that we need to be very actively engaged in, and it's not armchair philosophy, I guess, like Prabhupada says. And one final point is that once we overcome, we will always be under the Maya potency of the Lord. But once we overcome the Mahamaya potency, then we come under the Yogamaya potency of the Lord, and that's a lot sweeter. And in that stage, hopefully we won't be seeing Krishna as God, but we'll see him as a much more intimate relation. And that's the sweetest way to see Krishna. So hopefully we can all continue to work towards that ultimate goal. So these are the main points that I wanted to highlight from the purport. Again, it was very straightforward. Prabhupada was just breaking down the verse. And I'm sure there's much more that could be said on any aspect of this verse. So if anybody would like to add any comments, or if there's any correction that you would like to make, please feel free to speak. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Mukunda Prabhu, this is Sri Kishore Das. Please accept my obeisances.
Mine too, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much for this wonderful class. I was particularly attracted to this aspect of, seeing God. Like you were mentioning towards the end, why can't we see God? This is one question, one challenging question which many people have. If God exists, why doesn't he appear?
Yeah.
You have very beautifully explained, Prabhu. Some of my thoughts on this are, when we ask this question, we or anyone, whoever asks this question, we inherently have this thought in mind that I'm so qualified to see God.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, that itself defeats the whole thing, actually. That itself is our disqualification.
Yes.
And when we try to explain this to people, it becomes very difficult. They don't seem to understand. They feel like even I myself feel like, I'm so qualified to see God. I'm chanting every day, but why doesn't God appear in front of me? And I think Kunti Maharani is going to give us so many wonderful lessons in the whole section, where she highlights upon this particular aspect of seeing God in many places, actually, how to see God throughout the whole section through.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this was just my thought, Prabhu. No question. Just wanted to add this one point. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. That's a very, very nice point. And I was
Thank you
also
very
just,
much, Prabhu.
thank you for sharing that. And also I was thinking, you mentioned how, sometimes we may think like, I'm chanting every day, I should be seeing, I'm worthy. But
Yeah,
the funny thing about chanting is that in on one side of it, we may be thinking, I'm chanting every day, so I must be worthy to see God. But then on the other side, we are also simultaneously seeing from that chanting how much of our bad character and our unwanted qualities, our anarthas, are being uncovered. And so if we bring in the aspect of self-honesty, then we can see
yeah.
that, oh wait, actually I have a lot of work to do.
True,
So
Prabhu. That's wonderful. Actually, that's amazing point which you mentioned, Prabhu. Yes.
yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. One point, just recollecting when you said Queen Kunti seeing Krishna in front of her, and also at the same time is able to save the Parikshit Maharaj in the womb of Uttara. Right.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's like Krishna doesn't need to get inside and leave his position. I mean, whatever his identity, right? So he's able to do multiple things at the same time, right? I mean, in yesterday's verse, he's like, don't think that it is a wonderful activity, right? I mean, so
Yeah,
yes, it's like, I mean, Krishna's, the wonders, it's inconceivable, right? As Mohan Lila Prabhu was saying.
yeah,
So, I mean, even when we pray to Krishna, Krishna doesn't need to come in front of us and to help us, right? So he has so many ways to do that, right? So,
yes,
yeah, just thinking. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. That's actually a nice point as well. Very practical in our lives. So in the same way that Queen Kunti is not necessarily seeing how Krishna is acting to
Yes.
save the child, similarly in our lives, we may not necessarily be seeing how Krishna is acting in our lives to direct us. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda Prabhu. Thank you so much for nicely bringing up the points. I'm really appreciating Queen Kunti's mood, particularly in this verse. She is understanding at the same time his inconceivable nature, but she's not like, going away and saying, okay, anyway, I can't understand. She's appreciating both of those aspects, like their connection with him on the material, that familiar level, as well as the all-pervading Supreme Personality. That's
Yeah,
really so wonderful. I mean, just be able to hold both those views and be able to appreciate, that was really heart-touching. And the other point, just you mentioning about the chanting, it's really nice. I was appreciating. At times, these thoughts come like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, whatever,
yeah,
But I really like His Holiness Rampa Swami Maharaj always says, when we ask how to cultivate humility, he says, try to chant attentively.
yeah,
And see that, we can't even focus, one full round, forget about one full round, maybe may not be even like, few mantras, the mind goes here and there. So I'm really appreciating that aspect of Krishna consciousness. It's not like, just some candle meditation or whatever, where we don't feel any reciprocation. When we say the chanting or Mahamantra reciprocation, I'm actually feeling, that is the reciprocation from Krishna right there. Be able to connect us to the chanting and to ourselves, which we may not be able to experience with anything else. So I was just appreciating that, the very personal, dynamic, and reciprocative nature of Krishna consciousness. Thank you for bringing up that point.
Yeah, thank you for that point, Mataji. Very nice. Anyone else have any final points to share or any question or comment? Okay, then we can end there. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.